introductions. So in today's session, we are working with BITSOM, that's the BITS School of Management based in Mumbai. They had their first intake last year. Now they're admitting for their second intake. And it's a very exciting place, beautiful campus at the heart of the city in Powai. I've been to the campus, really enjoyed visiting, seeing the infrastructure over there. And it's a pleasure to be hosting this particular session for them. My name is Sanjay Dhingra. I am a co-founder and director at Seed Global Education. We are a higher education firm that helps connect universities and candidates with each other. So bringing together top-tier institutions like BITSOM and candidates like yourself who are looking to pursue an MBA, master's education. We bring you together to experience the school in sessions like these, to master classes like these. For today's session, I have Professor Martins with me. He is a faculty he is the faculty at McComb's Business School in Austin, Texas. He is going to talk to us about leading change in 21st century. We are seeing a lot of disruption. We saw the COVID wave. We are seeing just everywhere, right? We are seeing a war in Europe, which many of us could never have thought about. So there's a lot of disruption going around across the world. And he's going to talk to us about leading change and handling such disruptions in the 21st century to emerge as a successful business leader. So he's going to talk to us in a bit. But before that, I am going to invite Sampurna Ghosh, who is a manager in the admissions department at BITSOM, to tell us a little bit about the school, introduce the school, and take us through the highlight of their program, the MBA program that they offer. So with that, let me hand it over to Sampurna. Over to you, Sampurna.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. And thank you so much to all of you for joining in on a Saturday morning. Thank you, Professor, for joining us today. We're really looking forward to the session. So I will just quickly take you through, what it is, what BITSOM is all about and what's in store for you at this school. So the BITS School of Management, BITSOM was launched last year in January 2021, and our founding class is currently in class. And we are at the moment recruiting for the batch of the class of 2024. So the intake is in July 2022. So what is the BITSOM MBA? In a nutshell, the BITSOM MBA is a degree program based in Mumbai. It's full-time residential spanning over 2 years. So BITSOM, the BITS School of Management, is from the aegis of BITS Pilani. So the MBA degree that you get is awarded by BITS Pilani, which is an institution of eminence recognized by UGC and the Government of India. And currently, as Sanjay rightly said, we are based in Powai, Hiranandani, on our campus. We'll take you through some pictures shortly. It's a full-time residential program. The residences are also in the vicinity of the campus in Powai, and it spans over 2 years. That's the BITSOM MBA in a nutshell. What is the, what does really differentiate us from other programs out there? And one of the things that all of our students, and our prospective students and even parents included, come back to us and talk to us about as the real differentiator is definitely our stellar faculty. It's curated from across the world, and as you will get to see and experience a class with Professor Louis Martin. So just like him, we have professors from around the world, from some of the best schools in the world, come in and teach you as visiting faculty. Of course, we have Dean Ranjan Banerjee and Dr. Leena Chatterjee as our permanent faculty. In addition to that, you can take a look at the screen. So we have Professor Dan Gore from NYU Stern. We have Professor Louis Martins from University of Texas, Austin. We have Professor Gerald George. He's the Dean of SMU. Professor Shomitra Datta, he's recently, taken charge as the Dean of Said Business School. Professor Kate Lamberton. They speak for themselves. Do look them up, and it's sort of it is definitely the best proposition that is on table with, when it comes to the quality of education that is being imparted at BITSOM. Other than that, what is it that really sets this apart? It's a program that sort of sets you up for leadership, not only for the next, it doesn't only prepare you for the immediate placement after the MBA, but also for your career going forward. And something that Dean Banerjee often talks about is that, any individual at this day and age is, likely to have, 2 or 3 distinctive careers in their 40 years. And in that, you need to be able to, someone that can keep up with the change. And the MBA being more of an ultimate degree, unless you do a PhD, you're unlikely to go back to school after this program. And hence, it's something that sort of, really needs to prepare you for the long-term success. And while the curriculum, as you can see on the left, we have 5 specializations on offer. We'll take you through some of them. In year 2, there are 70 plus courses, 1600 plus contact hours. But in the 70 plus courses and the contact hours, what you also get is a winning at the workplace module, which runs parallelly with your core management subjects. And what do you study in these subjects? You study, you study courses that teach you things like whole brain thinking, persuasive writing, negotiation skills, influence and persuasion. So, and it's 400 plus hours. And this is something that sort of, talks to the building of the EQ and the EI in the individual that is sort of so important as leaders of today and tomorrow. It's a class of 150 that we aim to, build for next year, for July 2022. The current class is 139. So as you can see, it's very few people, and hence, because, and it's going to be so for the next few years. And because of that, we can really, really pay individual attention to each and every one of our students. So there is a personal development program that runs with Dr. Leena Chatterjee, where she sits one-on-one with each and every student to sort of map out where they've come from, where they want to go, and how do they get there by making the best of these 2 years that they're here. So that's a whole program on its own that runs on a one-on-one basis with Dr. Chatterjee. Other than that, you have a mentorship program where you're mapped with, a mentor of your choice. From our roster, they're largely from their BITS Pilani alums and industry leaders who are sort of your one-on-one mentors in this journey. And of course, there's a whole placement readiness program, the PRP, in which, this is all beyond classroom hours, where, before going into the placement week, there's a lot of case study prep to be done. There's a lot of interview prep to be done. And all of that is sort of, that's the support you get from the school. Additionally, we also have an immersion program with LBS. We have a collaboration with LBS, the London Business School, and there's a 2-week immersion that's on the cards in year 2, where all the students are eligible to go. And it's a curated program between BITSOM and LBS. And there are talks of exchange with LBS and other schools. And as we have more information on that, you'll find out more on that. So the core curriculum, which is the core management subject. So year 1, you study, all your marketing strategy, OB, operations, leadership, all of that. Everybody studies all the same courses. And then in year 2, it's a dual specialization program. So you get to pick from subjects from across 2 of the specializations that are listed on the screen right now. If you really want a deep dive into each one of these subjects and get a feeler of what they are like, I would recommend that you go on our website, bitsom.edu.in. All of these subjects are listed, including the winning at the workplace subjects, and a 1-line brief is given on each one of them. And it'll be really valuable for you to kind of take a look at that. As we said, there's a whole career support for students as well. So we have a professional career advancement team. It's a career services team. And in this, they are professionals. They are the ones who are going out and, seeking the opportunities from corporate for our students. So not only do they do that, but they also are, not only do they do that for summer internships or final placements, but they also get opportunities for you for the live projects. So in the curriculum, it's inbuilt that you do 3 live projects in your 2 years duration. So the first one is a social sector live project where you're working on real world problems that, a philanthropy or an NGO is facing, and they give you that problem. They give you some objectives to meet, and you alongside a team of 4 or 5 of your peers, you kind of come up with solutions, and you work on that project, and you present it to the NGO or the philanthropy that you're working with at the end of the 2-month duration. So similarly, you do 2 corporate life projects also, where you get to work with some very big corporates during this time, and again, it's a group problem solving, real world problem solving exercise. So this is in addition to your summer internships and your final placements. Other than that, we already spoke about the mentorship and the PRP program. So we've just concluded our summer internships last year in December. And these are just some of the representations of the companies that came and recruited our students. We're really proud that largely they've recruited for their flagship internship programs. And the summer placement report is out. It's on our website again. I will share the link to it, but please feel free to go and take a look for yourselves as well. Currently, we are based in Hiranandani Powai in Mumbai, as we mentioned. So this is our city campus. It's spread across 50,000 square feet. It's a state-of-the-art facility, as Sanjay mentioned. And in early 2024, we are expected to move to a 60-acre campus that's coming up in Kalyan. So this is a glimpse of our founding class. The second picture is with Professor Ziv Kaplan when he was here, all the way from the US in Pennsylvania. And this is just an idea of what the class profile looks like. Not to say that, this is these are cutoffs or anything, but to say that what does the current class look like. So the gender ratio is 35% women and 65% men. It's about 7% engineers, 33% non-engineers. These are sort of the benchmark of the medians. And mind you, these are medians, which means there are people above them, below them. So there's a whole range. We have about, a lot of you must be still in college, and hence you might wonder whether freshers are welcome to apply or not, and hence that's the statistic right there on the left-hand side bottom corner. So 24% of the class are freshers, and another 27% are in the 0 to 2 years of work experience, followed by 35% in 2 to 4, and the rest in the 4+ category. Very quickly, what is the process flow? There's an online application form. You go to the website, right on top at the right-hand side corner, there's an apply now button. You hit the button, you fill out your little detail. You get to sort of get into the form. It's a rather long form in the sense that it asks you to write a couple of essays. It's a little bit of a self-reflective tool. So we encourage you to take at least a couple of days, take the weekend and fill it out. You put in all your details, you upload all your documents, and then once you submit it, after the deadline. And so we keep reviewing applications on a rolling basis, and interview calls are released as you go. And if you are shortlisted, then you do a personal interview on Zoom with our panelists, largely BITSOM leadership and BITS Pilani alums. And then the admissions committee takes a decision, and based on that, you are either offered a seat at BITSOM or not. Here are, as you can see, it's listed the things that you need to put into the form. You need your academic scores. You definitely need a CAT, GMAT, or a GRE. You need to have an undergrad, and you need to have a CAT, GMAT, GRE. If you are going to graduate in the class of 2022, then if you're BTech, then up to the 3rd year, all 6 semester mark sheets are required. And if you're in a 3-year program, then up to 2nd year, all 4 semester mark sheets are required. Very quickly, the fees is about 24.5 lakh spread over 2 years. You pay it in 2 installments at the beginning of year 1 and year 2. There are a bunch of bank loans and scholarship opportunities. We can speak about this a little later as well, but it's all on the website. If you go to the website, go to the FAQ section, all of the details are given very, very in vivid details, and I'll share the links as well. So here are the timelines. Currently, we are in round 3 of our application process, and 20th March is the deadline. 20th March. Please, go and start your forms, take a couple of days to fill it out and put them in. We are still about 2 weeks to go, and as we speak, we are also rolling out offers and doing interviews all simultaneously for round 1 and round 2 candidates. And the classes begin on 4th of July. You might wonder if you still have a chance if you apply in round 3. You very much do. So don't worry about that. Just go in and put in your applications. I'll put all of these details on the chat for you to be able to, take them with you after this as well. So you can contact us on our number, on our email ID. You can also connect with one of us personally on a one-on-one call by booking profile evaluation sessions with us, team admissions. So thank you so much. Over to you, Sanjay. All the best and hope you enjoy the class with Professor Martins.
Thanks, Sampurna. Thank you for that brief introduction. So to the audience, you may, as I mentioned, I've been to the campus. It's a beautiful, wonderful place. I, of course, know their team, have interacted with some of the faculty as well. So Professor Martins didn't know this before the session. He actually taught me management of organizations when I was a student at ISB. So he didn't know about this before the session. Of course, this was a decade ago, 2011, 2012. And they have faculty like Professor Martins, wonderful people, amazing teachers, amazing researchers that come and teach you in the program. So in fact, I could recognize a lot of the names of the faculty list because a lot of them are visiting faculty at ISB as well. And I was taught by quite a few of them, as I mentioned, including Professor Martins. And the learning experience from all of them was just amazing and amazing to the extent I can speak of. With that, I am going to invite Professor Martins to speak to us, but I'm going to take a minute before that. I'm going to do a detailed introduction for him as well. But before that, I want to run our 2 polls for the day, right? We want to gauge what kind of audience we have in the session. And you'll see the first poll going live on your screen right now. We have around 386. Okay, we are still counting and growing. We are 386 attendees as of now in the session. So please let us know in which year are you aiming to start your MBA education. So if you are someone who is looking to start in 2022, then that's the option. If you're looking at 2023, then that's the next option. So 23, 24, or if you're still undecided, you're still evaluating options, still making up your plans, then choose the undecided option. So do let us know the year in which you're aiming to start your MBA education. All right. I have around 75 responses. I'm going to keep this open for another 10, 20 seconds. Hope I'll touch the 100 count. So if you haven't responded, please do respond to this poll and let us know in which year are you aiming to start your MBA education. All right. Okay, I'm at 95, 96. Okay, we have crossed 100. So I'm going to stop the poll now and I'm going to share the results very quickly. So around 25% of our audience are looking at this year's intake, around 33% are looking at next year, 2023, 18% are 24, and the remaining 24% are undecided as of now. So those of you who are looking for the 2022 intake, this becomes particularly relevant to you. And you'll see my second poll for the day going live on your screen now. This is about your GMAT, GRE, or CAT plans. If you're someone who's already taken one of the tests, then click the first option. If you're planning to take the test within this year, right, within the next couple of months, or let's say 2022 overall, then choose the second option. If you don't have any plans, you haven't thought when you would be taking the GMAT, GRE, or CAT, any of those tests, then choose the third option and let us know where you are in your management admission journey or preparation journey as of now. All right. I have around 65, 70 responses. Again, I'm going to wait to touch the 100 mark and I'm going to show the results very quickly, especially those of you who are looking for the 2022 intake. Our belief is you should have either taken the tests already or planning to take one of the tests very soon. But do let us know whatever your current status is. It would be great to see where you are in your journey, application journey as of now. All right. I am at around 90 responses, 10 more to go. So please do let us know, just respond quickly. Please let us know where you are in your CAT, GMAT, GRE preparation journey. All right. Last 3 spots left to respond. So if you haven't yet, please do. And with that, I am going to end this poll at 99 responses, and I'm going to quickly share the results. So around 12% of the audience, I touched the 100 mark, great. So 12% of the audience have taken the test already, so they have a valid score. Around 68% are planning to take it very soon, and the remaining 20% have not yet started preparing or don't have any plans as of now. So great, thank you to the audience. Thank you for responding to this poll. And with that, let me invite Professor Martins. Let me do a quick introduction for him. He's got such a stellar profile. I can go on and on, but to introduce him briefly, he's a professor of management at Red McComb School of Business at the University of Texas at Austin, where he holds the Herb Kelleher Chair in Entrepreneurship and the James B. Goodson Professorship in Business. He earned his PhD in Management and Organizational Behavior from the Stern School of Business at New York University. Prior to joining the University of Texas at Austin, he was on the faculty list at Georgia Institute of Technology and the University of Connecticut. He teaches organizational behavior at BITSOM, and as I mentioned, he also taught management of organization to me when I was a student at ISB. So it's a pleasure to be hosting you, Professor, today. Really an honor to have you over here. And thank you again for doing this session. With that, over to you.
Thanks, Sanjay, for that gracious introduction. It was wonderful to see you on this today. And welcome to everybody. As Sanjay said, I'm a professor of management at the University of Texas at Austin, where I teach courses in designing and running organizations, what you would call MGTO, or organizational behavior, and also in leading innovation and change, which is the electives that I teach. What I thought I'd do for our session today is take you through a typical format of how I teach the various topics involved in these two areas. And so I'll expose you to just one of those formats, which is what you might call the case study. And in this case, it's going to be a brief case study that I'm going to describe to you. And then following that, I'll have some questions for you that we'll use to explore the concepts that we want you to take away in terms of thinking about management. So let me set the setting for you at where this situation happened. It's a situation that happened in the 1890s in the South China Sea. And the innovator in this case was a man named Lieutenant William Sims, who was a junior officer in the US Navy, and his ship was stationed in the South China Sea. Now, as a junior officer in the Navy on this ship, his responsibility was to make sure that the gunners were doing a good job. So he was in charge of the gunners. Now, that's a first line management responsibility where the gunners are doing the work and he's making sure they're doing the work well. And above him, obviously, there are lots of layers of management going all the way back to Washington and reporting to the President of the United States. So his task is to make sure the gunners are doing well. But he is highly unsatisfied with the state of naval gunnery. It turns out that at that time, only 1.3% of shots fired hit their targets. And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us would be dissatisfied if our success rate was only 1.3%. So he's unhappy about this and he's frustrated by it. However, that was what the situation was. The normal process for firing from a ship, which is out in the sea, in those days was, you had this gun on elevating gears. And so you had to raise the gun to a certain angle using those elevating gears. And then when the enemy ship was just about to get into your sight, so you leave the target, you fire. So they said, okay, if we can, let's figure out a way to make this better. So the R&D department of the Navy, which was the Bureau of Ordnance and Navigation, so the Bureau of Ordnance, had figured out that maybe we could put telescopic sights on the guns, we can improve our hit rate. However, those telescopic sights helped you estimate the distance to the enemy ship better. But if you're looking through a telescopic lens, when you're about to fire and you mistime it and not move your face away from the telescopic sights, the recoil of the gun is going to make those telescopic sights hit your eye. So whatever gains they got from those telescopic sights, they lost in terms of that added estimation. So we're still at 1.3%. Interestingly, 1.3% was better than what the other navies were doing. So the US Navy is seen as a benchmark in naval gunnery. Other Navy personnel are coming to the US to see what these folks are doing to get to 1.3%. On top of that, it turns out that the US Navy had played an instrumental role in winning the Spanish-American War. So they were seen as a very effective Navy. Okay? So you might surmise that this 1.3% was seen as successful. However, Lieutenant Sims did not accept that. He was still unhappy with the fact that only 1.3% of the shots hit their mark. Turns out, interestingly, that the solution to this problem of inaccuracy is very simple. That if the gun can move while you're aiming and firing, then your accuracy goes up tremendously. This discovery was made by Admiral Sir Percy Scott of the British Navy. So he was watching a bunch of gunners doing target practice, and he noticed that this one gunner was slightly better than the others. So he was curious. He says, what is this guy doing that makes him slightly better than the others? So he watches the guy for a while, and he realizes that the guy is putting his entire weight on this apparatus to move the gun just a little bit, and that's helping him improve his accuracy. So that produces this aha moment, this moment of this innovation or this innovative idea happening, which is that if we can get the gun to move continuously while the person is aiming and firing, we should be able to improve our hit rate. So what Percy Scott does is he changes the elevating gears, basically taking some of the same mechanics, but reconfiguring them and allowing for the gun to move while the person is aiming and firing. The telescopic sights that were a nuisance in some ways, they moved those out a little bit so that when the recoil happened, they did not hit them in the face. So these changes dramatically increased the hit rate. When I say dramatically, it's spectacular even for .com type companies here, which is they had a 3,000% increase in performance, in accuracy. Now, for some reason, and I'm guessing that intellectual property lawyers hadn't been invented yet or something, Percy Scott shares his discovery with Lieutenant Sims while they are while they're on shore leave. Now, Lieutenant Sims is very excited about this idea, and he conducts the same kind of experiments on his own ship and finds the same kind of improvement. Now, if you are a junior manager in an organization and you come up with this brilliant idea for doing what you're doing much, much better, 30 times better, then you, like Lieutenant Sims, probably would think the same thing, which is, let's all do this. Let's spread this idea across the organization so that we can all benefit. So he writes up this idea, includes documentation, includes all sorts of tests, includes engineering drawings even of what he had done with the mechanics of the gun. And he compiles all of this stuff in this report and sends it to the Bureaus of Ordnance and Navigation. And as with anybody else who has an exciting idea that can produce such a big benefit, he expected to hear back from them saying, what a great idea, we want to do this, and a great job, Lieutenant Sims. That was wonderful. Interestingly, time passes and he hears nothing. Turns out actually that when he goes back to Washington a few years later, about 4 years later, he finds that the bureaus had simply filed away his reports and they had been eaten by moths and other insects that eat this kind of thing. When he doesn't hear back from them, he gets frustrated. So he sends more information to them. He writes more reports, more drawings, sends them in again. He waits for a while, doesn't hear anything. Then he changes his tone a little bit, and he says, he starts being more strident, imploring them, pushing them to pay attention to what he was proposing to them as an idea. Still no response. He gets fed up and he makes copies of these reports, like many copies. Now, mind you, this was before we had copy machines. So he's handwriting all of these copies and sends them out to many different ships where they're just broadly circulating in the Navy at this point. By this time, he's become a big nuisance to the bureaus of ordnance and navigation. They're aware of him, they're aware of his idea, they just don't want to respond to him. Eventually, because he's spreading his ideas so wide, they feel compelled to respond. So they conduct some tests in the Navy Yard on a river in near Washington, D.C., and they write back to him and said that they've done some tests, and 5 men acting on the elevating gear of a typical gun could not move it enough to compensate for a roll of the ship of 5 degrees in 10 seconds. Therefore, they'd proven that what his idea could not work. It's kind of interesting because they are testing it in different conditions than what he's finding in reality, which is he's out on the sea and there's the roll of the ship that's very important to factor in, whereas in a river, you're not going to have the same kind of turbulence and therefore the movement and different kind of physics. But they are the R&D organization. They've done the tests on their terms and send this off to him. Interestingly, given like any good bureaucratic organization, they tell him that if there is a problem, it's with the gunners and he's responsible for the gunners. So it's not us, it's you. So at this point, Lieutenant Sims gets fed up. He starts calling them names. They try to ignore him. They say he's crazy and he's making up his data. They're happy he's far away in the South China Sea, very far away from Washington, D.C. So this goes on for a while. And obviously for a while, because in those days, they did not have email. Imagine how quickly that would escalate in email. But this is escalating in snail mail. And the snail is, I guess, swimming across water to get to shore and then come all the way over to the US and back. He finally gives up on these folks. And he decides that there's no convincing them. They're just not going to do anything about it. And he does something truly remarkable. He collects all of his documentation and records all of his efforts to change their minds and sends it to the President of the United States. Now, the president at the time was Teddy Roosevelt, who had been an assistant secretary of the Navy. And he had a habit of responding to letters from the field from the various armed forces. And this one caught his eye. So he immediately sees the potential of this. He orders Lieutenant Sims to Washington in 1902, and he's made the director of target practice. And as the director of target practice, Lieutenant Sims instituted continuous aim gunfire as standard practice throughout the US Navy. So this is a story of a successful implementation of an innovation by the innovator out in the field. Okay. He eventually retires as an admiral. There's several ships named after him. And he's seen as the father of the modern United States Navy, one of the fathers, I guess. And there's even a postage stamp with his face on it. But although the story has a happy ending eventually, over a 4-year period or so. It does leave us with a fascinating question and a fascinating case of innovation within existing organizations. So innovation and change within existing organization. Now, think about this. His improvement was 3,000%. Isn't that enough to make the case for why this improvement should be implemented? So that's a fundamental question that we're left with at the end of this case, which is, why was there so much resistance to his change? Any thoughts on that? You want to throw those in chat? So the question is, if this idea was going to produce 3,000% improvement and he was sending all this data and the like, why was there so much resistance from Washington to this idea? Please put your responses in chat. I'm not seeing any responses. Are there no responses?
Not yet. There's one from me. I wanted to participate as well, so I've taken a shot.
Maybe they're just too comfortable. And the thing is, one of the interesting thing about prior success. Remember, this organization was seen as a benchmark of gunnery worldwide. So others were coming and looking at them as a success story. They also won the Spanish-American War. So the fact that they had success tends to make you complacent, because success reinforces your thoughts about how things should be done. It's only when that's not working that you then look for new ideas or open to new ideas. The reason Sims was open to new ideas because he was frustrated with the situation, and he wouldn't accept it as the only way things could be done. And so, unless you have some sort of a gap, unless there's some sort of desire for superior performance, innovation is not necessarily sought by an organization or even often tolerated.
Could another reason have been that the R&D department wanted to protect its turf? They were like, hey, we are responsible for research, coming up with new innovation. How can a field officer really do this innovation without us?
Very good. So, it's the R&D department's job to do this thing. And remember, they've been working at this for decades, and the best they can do is 1.3%. So there are two issues here. One is, that's not your job. Your job is to just point that thing and fire. Get your folks to do that. Whereas we are the ones who are going to come up with all of the ideas. So when you think about the modern organization, what happens when you have that type of a mindset? That's a prescription for steady decline, right? Because other ideas that are important to advancement in today's world, to competitive advantage, are they all going to just come from the R&D department or just from the management? They're everywhere. So if you are going to be adaptive to the disruptions that you're going to face, you need to actively look for ideas all over the organization, particularly people in the front lines. So people on the front lines are doing the work, dealing with the customers, dealing with frontline issues, and they can see the problems and come up with potential solutions. Interestingly, they have no power to do anything with them. So the power rests at the top of the organization. But by the time you get to the top of the organization, you're not seeing the problems and not coming up with new ideas. You're actually being rewarded for implementing the current thought process really well. So if you want to be an organization that fosters, that's adaptive to these disruptions and can actually compete effectively in these settings, you need to make sure that you are seeking new ideas and innovations throughout the organization. But it's interesting, if you think about your own selves, those of you who work in organizations, or those of you who have gone into schools that are rigorous and challenging, etc. You think about when you had the most original ideas? The day you joined the organization or after you've been in there for many years? It's usually the day you join the organization, right? So the fresh mind is in early stages and further out into the periphery of the organizations in terms of power, but you don't have the authority to do these new things. And so the organization sort of squelches even your ability to think differently about it. Any other thoughts?
I will vouch for that. We face that with 10 plus years of experience. I've faced those challenges and I'll vouch for this kind of challenge. I want to take a minute to encourage the audience. See, don't be, a lot of our audience are pre-final year college students. So I'm guessing some of them are hesitant to post their thoughts publicly. But think of this as a safe space. Professor Martins is extremely friendly, extremely helpful. If you have any ideas on this, any suggestions, please feel free to post them in the chat box, right? I mean, it would really help make this conversation interactive, and you would benefit a lot more from this session if you are candid and share your ideas as well. So feel free to share any thoughts you may have. Please feel free to post them in the chat box. We'll be happy to see your thoughts over there. I'm also going to invite Sampurna to do so. So Sampurna, Sharang, who are the other people who are on the call from Seed and Bitsom, please feel free to share your ideas as well. I think this would prompt the audience, give them the confidence to go ahead and do that as well.
Am I that scary, Sanjay? So
Professor, you have the opposite reputation with our students, I think.
Absolutely. So he is the most friendly faculty you will see ever. I remember from 2011, the students used to be so chill, so cool in the class, and he's the coolest professor you can think of.
Absolutely.
So feel free to post anything, be very comfortable. But maybe you can take a shot at as well at this question.
Let's see if Sampurna was paying attention. What other thoughts do you have about?
That's like cold calling.
No,
I know.
I think Sanjay already sort of resonated. I was just listening into the discussion that the two of you were having, and I just feel like, so just a little anecdote. I remember when I started working, I joined this very large organization as a graduate trainee. And I remember that was the first year that they did this whole program of, taking fresh undergrad students as graduate trainees in that organization. And much later did we realize that the whole point of it was that the company had a lot of employees that were there for 3 to 5 years. Largely all of their employees were, there for 3 to 5 years, and was sort of stagnating in terms of freshness, in terms of new ideas. And what they really wanted is to kind of, get these 15, 20 people, 21-year-olds to kind of infuse that sort of new energy. And this is a company which was a young, the brand, it's a media company, and all the brands were extremely, appealing to youth. So brands like MTV, VH1, Comedy Central. So it was a youth brand, and but they didn't have the fresh ideas. Sort of, they were doing the same old things. And we, being as young as we were, didn't quite understand what was going on. And so we were just us. We just walked in, and we kind of didn't understand hierarchies, and we just kept throwing ideas at people. We kept walking up and down the building, interacting with people from different departments. And that's when the heads turned, because later we learned that we weren't given a memo as to this is what you're supposed to do, but we realized like we actually did the things that they had thought that we would do. In terms of getting people to talk to each other, and synergies, and building all of that.
So in terms of that approach, what you're talking about is that they were trying to bring in fresh thinking by having some fresh minds come in. In innovation, we talk about how you need to have a beginner's mind to ask the right kind of questions, to observe the problem from a different perspective. So what's interesting is that the folks who are coming in fresh, unless they have a mandate from the organization to be able to make that change, to ask those questions, they immediately get told. So you say, I have a new idea, and then immediately go, no, that's not how we do things around here.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a form of how the culture can often squelch innovation. So if you want to be an organization that's able to adapt and compete in disruptive situations, you can't lose that youth in terms of thinking. So for example, at 3M, which has been an organization that has competed successfully and dominated its industry for many of those years, for decades, they expect their people to spend about 15% of their time working on new ideas, right? So that's that flex time. Interestingly, if you ask people tell me about an organization that gives you time to innovate, they'll say, well, Google gives you 20% time. They call it 20% time. 3M has been doing 15% time for, I think, at least 70 years now, something like that, for a really long time. And the whole idea is that to the extent that you let people focus on coming up with new ideas, you don't fall into this trap of just saying, I know what I'm doing. Another thing you can do is so when you think about why organizations are challenged to innovate and why they struggle, you can think of it in terms of what an organization is made up of. An organization is a social entity that has a structure and systems. So structure defines who does what, who reports to whom, and the like. Systems and processes are how work gets done. But it also has a culture. It has a way of doing things. It's our way of doing things. That's our culture. And that culture has, whereas structure and systems tell you what you must do, culture tells you what you ought to do, what the expectations are. So how you ought to behave. And it's also a form of channeling, influencing people's behavior. In the end, you want your people to behave in specific ways. In this case, you want to produce innovation. So you need to make sure that the structure is not so hierarchical that people who are junior cannot come up with an idea to give to a senior person. And you see that at Google all the time. I mean, and you'll see that at Microsoft, you'll see that at a lot of these organizations we see as innovative. In fact, at Microsoft, it's interesting. Under Steve Ballmer, whom I wasn't a huge fan of his management style, he had very much of a top-down sort of style that I think prevented the organization from releasing its potential. And I'm very happy to see that Satya Nadella was able to release that innovation potential, because otherwise, Microsoft could have been in danger of what IBM went through in the 1990s, which was irrelevance as others that are more nimble came into that space. There's Raja, thanks for your suggestion here. I think that they didn't have the courage to try a new idea from one who doesn't have a relatable degree. Excellent. So this person on the ship is, just a first line manager. What do they know? So that's the normal process. That's what blinds the folks who are in the R&D department to ideas that can come from anywhere else. I'll give you a concrete example of this in business, which is at Procter & Gamble, they had concerns that they were not innovating enough. So when A.G. Lafley came in as CEO, a couple of decades ago, he set up a very simple metric, which was a beautifully elegant metric to drive innovation. He dictated that 50% of products introductions in the future should be based on ideas that are brought in from outside the organization. Now imagine what that did to the R&D department. They were very stressed out because they were the ones, everybody was waiting on them to pull a rabbit out of the hat and then go commercialize it. And now A.G. Lafley was saying, half of those ideas don't need to come out of the magical hat of the R&D folks. They can come from the outside. So, if you ever used a Procter & Gamble product called Magic Eraser, I forget the actual brand of it, but it takes cups off of walls and things. You can use it to get marks and things off. That was a product that BASF makes, and somebody in a flea market in Japan was selling this chopped up in pieces where people are using in their homes, and an innovation scout saw it and brought the idea in, and then Procter & Gamble was able to put all of their marketing muscle and developers. So the one thing to keep in mind is that what this case illustrates is that if you don't eat structures, hierarchy, top-down management structures and the like, make organizations be challenged when it comes to dealing with change and innovation in the environment. There's also a cultural aspect, because think about what it means to make a kill when a gun is very inaccurate. If you have an inaccurate gun, you have to do two things to make a kill, which is fire a lot and second, get closer. When you get closer, you have to make the kill, but not get hit yourself. So the captain's navigational skills are critical in this setting. But if you have an accurate gun, the gunner says to the captain, why don't you park your boat right about here and let me do my thing? So you can see that the power has gone from the captain to the gunner. It's become more of a technical exercise. You see this in finance. As you're seeing analytics come in, you can get expert advice from a computer or a junior analyst that you'd have had to have decades of experience before. So, senior advisors, financial advisors should be stressed about what the future holds for their profession, because you can see that it's becoming more of a technical exercise rather than a judgment exercise. You see this in medicine. As more and more intelligence is going into technology, it's becoming a technical exercise rather. But within an organization, what it does is it threatens the values that the organization holds dear. Because all the folks running the Navy at this point are former captains, not former gunners, because the valued skill was navigation, not gunnery. Gunnery was a commodity at 1.3% hit rate. Now, when you make it a technical exercise, that's where the competitive advantage comes from. And that kind of a shift becomes very difficult for cultures. So you see in the case of Kodak, one of the reasons Kodak went bankrupt, people think that they went bankrupt because they didn't pay attention to digital photography. They actually put in about $5 billion into digital photography for R&D, and they had the best technology in the space for the core of the camera. What they couldn't figure out is how do we put the right business model around that within the context of the culture and the reward systems and the like that Kodak had. So it was poor design and management. And I will conclude with one other thing that this case illustrates for you. Most of us, when we finish our PGP or MBA degrees, are going out and managing a group of people or an organization, right? So the whole point of management is to get things done through other people. Now, when we think about getting things done through other people through our subordinates, it's a simple matter of making sure, it's very complicated and very effortful, but you have some parameters around this that you're familiar with, which is, how do you motivate them and engage them and things like that. But when we are pitching ideas to our peers and above, we often forget them. So if you could ask yourself, what could Lieutenant Sims himself have done differently? His approach was, let's document, produce the data, and send it off, and it'll be apparent to people that this is a great idea. However, even well-intentioned people don't react to rational appeals as well as they react to touch and feel and emotional appeals. You need to engage the whole brain of the person. So imagine a different approach where he tries this, he doesn't get a response. He waits for a senior official or someone to come visit his ship and say, hey, let me show you a little experiment I'm running here. And just show the standard method and the different method. Run a little competition. Now remember, the senior official has probably been in charge of gunners before and understands the problem. And when they see this new solution in person, tangibly, they would be able to then be a champion for this particular change initiative. And so when you're selling ideas laterally and above, you're acting more as a person who is championing a cause. And so you're making a movement. And the more allies you bring into your idea, the more the idea then has a chance of being implemented. Now, in Sim's case, he was lucky that his idea was one of the ones picked by the President of the United States. Imagine how many letters come in. He was lucky that this one caught the President's eye, but luck is not a management method. What we do in organizational behavior and management of organizations is understand how to design and run organizations so that you can predictably produce predictably produce the behavior and outcomes that you seek. You are trying to make sure that you are using a method to get things done to other people, rather than simply intuition and our natural tendencies. And for me, one of the nice things about teaching this course at BitSom is that it's not just that we focus on these methods in organizational behavior, accounting, and the rest, but particularly for when you're talking about leadership and getting things done for other people, all the other things that have to do with who are you as a person? Do you understand your history and how it makes you the person you are? Where are you going? What impact do you want to have? All of these things produces what I think is a whole person approach to developing future leaders. And that's what attracted me to teach at BitSom. And I'm delighted by what I've seen in the first batch. And I'm looking forward to more of that from subsequent batches. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for doing this. And I would vouch for it running and this comes with possibly when I was a student at ISB, I just had 2-3 years of experience. I'd seen some of those challenges in organization, the resistance to change, resistance to new ideas. But post that, from that journey since then, I've seen it happen at many other organizations across industries, across functions. And it is a valid challenge. You may come up with innovative ideas, but the resistance to those ideas, to new thoughts, it's so difficult. And managing, influencing people, getting those stakeholders to support you to pull off things, it's extremely challenging. And you see this happen at really, really top organizations, which are supposed to be torchbearers of change and innovation as well. So I think it's all over the place. And I wish I had this, I learned this as a student in 2012, but I had this knowledge before that to have made more impact in the organizations I worked with. So thank you for this extremely insightful session. I know it's 12:30 a.m. over there in Texas, so it's really late in the night, and I know you're a night owl as well. But so I'm going to encourage our audience to ask questions if they have any. If you have any questions, we do still have 5 minutes with the professor. So if you have any questions that you want to ask him, please post your questions in the Q&A box, and I would pick up the right ones to ask him. You can also upvote other people's questions. So you can let us know the important questions and we can take it up for him. In the meanwhile, I'm going to ask certain questions to Sampurna about the BitSom program. I want to clarify, in the interest of the audience, tell you more about the school and the program. I'm going to ask her some questions as well. So Sampurna, you did mention the tuition fee. You spoke about how how for the 2 years it's coming to around 24.5 lakh Indian rupees. And you did mention that there are certain scholarships available as well. So what percentage of the cohort ends up getting a scholarship, and what is the average amount of that scholarship?
Yes. So as I said, we have 3 kinds of scholarships. So we have a merit-based scholarship, a women's merit scholarship, and a merit-cum-need-based scholarship. So all together, the whole kitty put together, it's about 35 to 40% of the class that is on some kind of scholarship or the other. And the range is from about 15% of tuition fees to 10 to 15% of tuition fees to 100% of tuition fees. So that's sort of the range. And largely the people that get scholarships are the saturation of that is sort of around the point of 40%, 40 to 50% of tuition fees. So that's sort of where the scholarship, this thing lies. So the deal is, if you are looking for a merit-based scholarship or a women's merit scholarship, you don't have to apply for it. You just fill out your form, you get, you get reviewed and all of that. And then after you've interviewed, we draw up a merit list at the end of the whole process. And should you feature towards the top of that, then we automatically offer you a scholarship. But if you're looking for a need-cum-merit-based scholarship, and the idea is that if affordability is a concern, then you should not have to forego quality education because of the financial constraints. And hence there is in the form, in the personal details section, there's a question which is, how do you intend to fund your MBA? And in the drop down, there's an answer which is BitSom scholarship/funding. And if you select that, there's a pop-up essay prompt that comes up. So you talk about why you need it and and why you deserve it. So a little, it's I think 400 or 500 words. So you just write that essay, and that becomes your scholarship application. In the review, you are not there's no bias against or for you if you have applied for a merit cum need based scholarship. The whole point is it's merit cum need essentially, which means that you are evaluated on merit just like everyone else. If you feature on our offer list, we go back and check how many of you on the offer list has applied for a need-based scholarship, and then we evaluate your financial documents, all of that, income certificates, etc., to evaluate the need, and based on the performance that you've shown, a percentage is sort of curated, and you're offered it. At this point this year, we are going to release most of our scholarship offers at the end of the third round offer. So to be fair to all of our students, we are going to do it. Most of the offers, scholarship offers, are going to be rolled out towards the end of the cycle.
Okay, thank you for that. Professor Martins, one question over here, right? A lot of our audience are possibly looking to start their MBA next year or the year after. And these would be people who would be possibly be joining the workforce very soon, right? These are pre-final year students or recent graduates. What can they do before they do their MBA to prepare themselves for such challenges at workplace, right? How to build their personal brand, how can they build their influencing capability, any books that they can read, anything that they can do to learn more about this discipline?
I think one book that they'll find useful is a book by Robert Cialdini called Influence. And that book goes through methods that you can use to influence others to pay attention to you. Another book by an executive coach that I find very useful for folks who have had some success, but would like to advance by managing other people, is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that's by Marshall Goldsmith. So Marshall Goldsmith is one of the top executive coaches in the world. And his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, gets you thinking about the skills it takes. What got you here are your technical skills and your smarts and the like. Won't get you there means you have to learn how to operate through other people and engage other people. And so I think those two books would anchor your thinking really well in terms of how to be effective at getting things done through others, which is what management is all about. In terms of self-preparation, I would say that the classroom experience in the BitSom class, in my course and in other courses, benefits a lot from people bringing their own experiences to the discussion. So I think one, paying attention and processing the experiences you're going through at work, trying to understand what the culture of the place is, trying to understand why you are happy or not happy with certain things. Those kinds of things open up certain processing in your mind, which then can be useful for recall when you're in the classroom. And if you are shy about speaking in front of a bunch of folks and putting out your ideas, I would recommend really thinking about what you can do to express yourself in public, because whether you like it or not, there are very few successful managers who stay completely silent. If you say, oh, this person doesn't talk very much. Well, they do express their ideas, and once they get to a certain level, they don't have to talk, because a look is enough to tell their subordinates what needs to be done. But till they get to that point, management, as a profession, is a discourse-based profession, right? So you need to engage other people in conversations and the like. And what we have in class is a conversation. And these sorts of forums like webinars and the like are very public sort of settings. But this is usually a class of about 70, 75, up to 100 people in some institutions like Harvard. So it ranges around 70 to 75 is standard. So it's people that you're spending 2 years with. Across the two cohorts, you'll have 150, let's say. But you do spend at least the first year, I believe, in a cohort that goes through the experience together. So it's a very safe space for taking interpersonal risks. We, the faculty, try to make it engaging so that you're having conversations with us and with each other. And the whole point of this is that it produces a sharpness of thinking through discourse. And so I think developing some comfort in debating ideas in public, while you are in school or in your work meetings and the like, would probably serve you well throughout your career, not just at BitSom. Yeah.
That absolutely makes sense. I think that's a valid message to our audience today as well, that your public speaking is required. You may have great ideas, but if you don't have the confidence to share them or talk about those ideas would never fructify, right? So you need to have the confidence to do that. And it would really
And by public speaking, we mean sharing your ideas with others as opposed to giving a speech. Those are useful, but you don't do very much of that in management till you are promoted to top positions, right? So
and we experienced this in B school, right? I mean, any study group discussion, any project that you work on, any case study that you do in a B school is usually with a group of students, and you really need to be able to influence, share your ideas with them, tell them, convince them about your viewpoint, and of course be ready to accept their viewpoint as well, and change your stance accordingly to come up with the best solution. And it's all about collaboration, working in teams, and having that confidence is really required. And I see a thank you coming in for that insightful message as well. And then on that note, since we don't have any more audience questions, I am going to take the liberty of wrapping up this session. I want to thank Professor Martins for, of course, doing this session. It's really late in Texas. It's 12:30. Okay, 12:40 a.m. over there. I'm cognizant of the time over there. So thank you again for doing this. It's been a pleasure hosting you and interacting with you and connecting with you again after over a decade. You taught me way back, I think it was November 2011 or early 2012. So really a pleasure connecting with you over here on this forum. And thank you for doing this. I also want to thank Sampurna for facilitating this session, getting Professor Martins on board, allowing us to host him, and you're agreeing to come onto this platform to share insights about the BitSom program, about the school with the audience. It is great. I think this is a great opportunity for the audience to get to know the school as well, evaluate the program, and know the differentiation, especially for a new program which BitSom is offering. So it's really great to be able to do this. Thank you to both of you again. And thank you to our audience as well. It's Saturday morning, I understand, maybe a little groggy with work from home, colleges being online. We are used to a late schedule these days. But thank you for joining in. The turnout was amazing. It would have been great to see some more participation as well. But I think that's a message to the audience. And thank you to all of you for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Sanjay. Thanks to all of you. Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Have a great weekend, all of you. Take care. Bye.